This video will cover an information session for the application to the BIOS 202 St. Luke's Biomedical Externship. My name is Autumn Moser. I'm a pre-health advisor in the Center for Career and Professional Development. Today, we will cover a brief description of the course, how the program works. We'll talk through the differences between the Physician Observer Program and the Physician Assistant Observer Program. We'll go through departmental policies here at Lehigh and at St. Luke's, talk through student responsibilities, things that you should consider before applying, and then an overview of the application process. So to get started, the BIOS 202 St. Luke's Biomedical Externship is a 3-credit course that's offered on a competitive basis to a limited number of juniors and seniors each semester. It's offered both in the fall semester and the spring semester. And by limited number of juniors and seniors, we typically accept 6 students each semester to participate. Students who are accepted spend a minimum of 60 hours at the hospital, and this includes a couple of different experiences. You will rotate between 6 different departments, including emergency medicine, internal medicine, general surgery, and pediatrics. The experience is not just with physicians. You'll also have the opportunity to shadow with residents and medical students to learn a little bit more about their own experience on the pre-med journey. Students can also attend educational conferences. You might be asked to participate in early morning rounds or a night on call. It's a really robust experience where you're able to experience the entire hospital system. There is an academic requirement, and it typically includes some reflection on your experience, including journaling, written or oral reports, and in-depth class discussions. This opportunity is open to Lehigh students as well as students at Muhlenberg and at Moravian. Their setup is slightly different, but in general, they're also spending a minimum of 60 hours at the hospital. That 60-hour minimum is just that, a minimum. You can do more than 60 hours if you would like. Many students end up completing 80 to 90 hours, depending on how many hours they're able to get with shadowing. The way that the program works is first a mandatory early Tuesday morning hospital class, which is offered every week. This class is typically early in the morning, 7:30, 8, 8:30. It's usually run by Dr. Rosenfeld, who is the Dean of the Temple St. Luke's Lewis Katz School of Medicine. And it includes presentations on different medical careers, and then some guest speakers from departments around the hospital, including radiation, rehab staff, case management, social work, pathology, medical records, departments like that. So in addition to your 60 hours of shadowing, you really do get the opportunity to learn about just about every department within the hospital. We do the program on a cohort basis. So your cohort will be you and students either from Lehigh or from Muhlenberg or Moravian. Your small group cohort does rotations every 2 weeks. So you'll rotate to a new department about every 2 weeks. And again, those typically include internal medicine, the emergency department, general surgery, pediatrics, orthopedics, departments like that. Students self-schedule their observation hours, and scheduling will depend on the rotation that you're assigned to. So for example, surgery, you have a big board with all of the surgeries on it, and you're able to shadow during any of those scheduled surgeries. Some of the other departments, it's a little bit easier to just come in and do some hours. So When you're in other departments, typically you get the contact information for the chief resident in that department and schedule with him or her. We do recommend about 5 to 6 hours of shadowing a week. 5 to 6 hours helps you ensure that you're able to meet the 60-hour minimum. We do not recommend taking a break from the shadowing. If you have a week with a lot of exams or a lot going on, sometimes there's a temptation to just skip your 5 to 6 hours that week and make them up later in the process. We do not recommend that. It's really hard for students to catch up when they're not maintaining 5 to 6 hours per week. As far as the academic component, you'll meet weekly with Dr. Behe, who teaches the BIOS 202 course. And again, that course is going to include journaling, sharing your experience with your classmates, sometimes doing research projects on particular topics that you might see within the hospital. Let's talk about some of the differences between the Physician Observer Program and the PA Observer Program. There is the opportunity for you to apply to the PA Observer Program if you're interested. The PA Observer Program is very similar in terms of the process as the Physician Observer Program. The application is the exact same application. There's just two main differences. First, the decisions about the applications. For the Physician Observer Program, decisions about applications to the program are made in-house here at Lehigh. Whereas for the PA Observer Program, those decisions are made by the chief PA at St. Luke's. Because of the decisions being made by the chief PA, those decisions come in a little bit slower than our Physician Observer Program. So if you apply for the PA Observer Program, be patient. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks to a couple of months before we hear back from the chief PA. The other thing to note with the PA Observer Program is that participation in the BIOS 202 course is optional. If you can't make that work with your schedule or don't need the 3 credits, you don't have to take the BIOS 202 course. You can still do the 60-hour minimum requirement of shadowing with your PAs, but you don't have to have that academic component. Any student participating in the Physician Observer Program has to take the BIOS 202 course. And then lastly, for our PA students, there is the option for a summer PA program. St. Luke's offers this program through them, so it's not through Lehigh. You do the application through St. Luke's, you don't get credit for it, but it is an option if you can't make the academic year work. In terms of requirements, specifically looking at biological sciences requirements, this course cannot be taken pass-fail. It cannot be taken more than once. So if you've already participated in the BIOS 202 program, you cannot participate again. It does not satisfy any life science major or minor requirements. On your degree audit, it will appear as a free elective and cannot be assigned to any requirements for your major or your minor. It cannot be taken with an overload. We don't recommend taking it with over 18 credits. Usually I recommend even less than that, about 16, to really make sure that you have the time to dedicate to shadowing. If you are a varsity athlete, you're more than welcome to apply and participate in the program. For our athletes who are in season when participating in BIOS 202, you need to submit a course or a time plan that does not exceed 16 credits and allows us to see when you plan to be able to dedicate those 5 to 6 hours per week to shadowing. Any graduate students who might be interested in applying are more than welcome to. Please note that seats are open to undergraduates first. If we have seats available after undergraduates have filled their spots, graduate students will be considered. In terms of requirements for St. Luke's, the first is a GPA requirement. A 3.4 or above is required for seniors to apply. 3.25 or above for juniors to apply. And for the PA Observer program, it's a 3.25 or above, regardless of class year. These GPA requirements need to be met at the time of application, not at the time of participating. So for example, if you have a 3.39 at the end of the fall semester and you apply in the spring, you won't be eligible to apply for that following fall semester. There's also a mandatory half-day orientation required by St. Luke's. Typically, this orientation is offered during that first week of classes or during the week before classes start. So you might need to miss class or come back to campus early in order to participate in the mandatory half-day orientation. If missing class the first week or coming back to campus is not possible for you, then you cannot participate in the BIOS 202 program. St. Luke's does require quite a bit of paperwork, including background checks, immunization records, and all of this information needs to be given by the deadline. Once you're accepted into the program, you will get a checklist of all of the paperwork necessary. If your paperwork is not in by the due date, your position will be given to another student. And then finally, St. Luke's has some requirements around dress and around behavior. So as far as dress, when you are on the hospital floors, it's required that you wear a lab coat and professional dress. Scrubs will be required when you're in surgery, and your externship badge should be worn and visible at all times while in the hospital. Let's talk through some of the student responsibilities. So the first thing is professionalism. Everything that you do reflects on Lehigh, and we want this opportunity to be able to continue. So dress and behavior is really important to remember while you are in the hospital. Again, submission of your materials on time, if you are accepted, is a responsibility. If your materials are not received by the due date, you will be asked to leave the program. It's your responsibility to adhere to St. Luke's policies, including dress and conduct. If for some reason you're in a situation where you're violating dress or conduct, you will be asked to leave the program. It's important to note that this is not a hands-on experience. This means that you shouldn't be doing anything related to patient care. Shadowing is an opportunity for you to be a fly on the wall, see what day-to-day typically looks like, ask questions, and interact with the physicians. If you're in a situation where a physician asks you to provide care to a patient, you have to be able to have the autonomy to say no. This is a hands-off experience. It's also important to have consistent attendance at the hospital. So I will reiterate that we recommend 5 to 6 hours per week. It's not a good idea to miss an entire week. In the past, we've seen students really struggle to make up those hours. So we want to be able to commit to 5 to 6 hours per week. And then finally, it's your responsibility to have good engagement with your Lehigh class process. So part of that class process is reflecting on your experience, being able to participate in class discussions, give feedback, talk about your experience. That's all really important. So your grade in BIOS 202 is made up of meeting those 60-hour requirements and also being a good participant in class. A couple of things to consider before applying. The first is, are you going to have enough time to be able to dedicate to going to the hospital and also attend to the rest of your courses and your responsibilities? If you feel like you have a semester coming up that's going to be really heavy course-wise, or you have a lot of responsibilities in clubs or organizations or other jobs off campus, it might not be the best semester for you to apply for BIOS 202. Another thing to consider before applying is transportation to the hospital. While transportation to the hospital is not required in order to be able to participate, it is something that we really want to make sure that you are considering before applying. Many students in the past who didn't have access to their own car would typically put together a carpool with other members of the cohort. There's also a bus that goes to St. Luke, so we can work out some different options, but it is something we want you to think about before putting in your application. The next is quick turnaround for those immunization records and background checks. So if you know that that might be something that's difficult for you in a particular semester, maybe you want to wait to apply. And then finally, attendance at that mandatory orientation. Again, that traditionally takes place either the first week of classes or the week before classes begin. So if you're unable to participate in that mandatory orientation, you will not be able to participate in the shadowing program. So now that we've gone through all of the policies and the procedures, let's talk about the application. After you finish this video, the next step will be completing the following quiz with a score of 100%. Once you score 100% on your quiz, a link to the application will be shared with you within 3 business days after your submission. It's important to remember that it might take me a little bit of time to send that link. Please don't email me directly asking for the link. If you completed your quiz with 100% score, you will get a link to the application within 3 business days. Once you have the application, we'll want to submit that application and all required materials by October 5th for a spring internship or March 15th for a fall internship. These due dates are very strict. All materials and applications need to be submitted on this date for your application to be considered. The application includes a couple of different steps. The first is submitting the actual application. You will get a link to a Qualtrics survey where you'll fill out some demographic information about yourself as an applicant. You'll have the opportunity to upload a copy of your resume. If you need some support with your resume, please bring it to the Career Center. We offer walk-in time for resume reviews Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. The application also includes 3 short answer essays. You will give some short answers about your motivation for medicine, previous experience within medicine, and your desire to participate in this program. In addition to the application, you'll have to send an official Lehigh transcript to aum221@lehigh.edu. The application will also require 1 letter of recommendation from a science professor. This science professor could be someone that you had in class, could be someone you're doing research with, or an academic advisor. Once all of those pieces of the application are submitted, decisions are typically made about 2 weeks after that due date. So at this time, you'll move to the next portion of this quiz where you'll answer 10 questions about the policies and procedures we just talked